Have you ever had a near-death experience? Or perhaps someone you know may have had a near-death experience? Well, if so, we would love to hear your story and have you as a guest on our podcast. For more information, visit NDE.world. Again, that's NDE.world. We would love to hear your story.
Welcome to the NDE World Podcast, where we explore the magical, mystical, and spiritual world of near-death experiences. And now, Ashton Lewis and Daphne Lynn.
And welcome back to the NDE World Podcast. I am your host, Ashton Lewis, and my lovely co-host, Miss Daphne Lynn. Hello, Daphne. How are you today?
Hello. How are you? I'm doing absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful is absolutely wonderful.
Exactly.
Very good. It's always good to hear that.
That's awesome.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So we are the NDE World Podcast, and we do a lot of different things here. We share the near-death experiences and reviews and interviews and concepts and different elements of that world, along with different spiritual phenomena and out-of-body experiences and just different cool things.
Extraordinary experiences. Yeah.
Hey,
share
like you said,
those.
if anybody's ever seen any or ran across any aliens or anything, I mean, let us know. I mean, we'll bring you on and talk about it.
UFOs, had visions. I mean,
yeah. We'll cover it all. So, but anyway, we can also, if you know someone who has had a near-death experience or has any of these really cool experiences, go over to the NDE.world website. Again, that's NDE.world, and contact us. We'd love to have you on the actual podcast. How's that sound, Daphne?
I love it. I'm so looking forward to some of the upcoming podcasts we have coming out. Got to just get our schedules lined up with it, but I'm really looking forward to some of the ones we got coming.
Me too. When you start really looking into the near-death experiences, that they do share a lot of common elements. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
We specialize in breaking down those elements and then sharing that with our listeners.
Yes, and I'm sure the more listeners listen, that there's things in these accounts that you can take away and learn and grow from as well. And that's the beauty in all of these accounts, is us sharing these, is because it is enlightening. It is something for self-growth. You know, you can apply these lessons that somebody else has experienced in your life, and you grow and shine. You know, let that light shine. You know, be that higher vibration, be that positive, that peace, that love that the world so needs. And we can glean that from these experiences that these people have had.
There are what we call nuggets.
Yes, I love calling them nugs. Give me some good nugs.
Going nugget hunting.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of nugget hunting,
let's go and check it all out, see what nuggets we can find.
We'll do that. So let's go ahead and bring our first clip of the day and see what we can find. And we'll go ahead and get these pens and pads out and go ahead and start taking some notes, and we'll be right back. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, and we are rolling.
I was adopted twice. Both adoptions were broken by abuse. I don't remember my childhood. I joined the army at age 18 and never looked back. I made myself into a modern success story, as evidenced by my running a $60 million division of a Fortune 500 company. But the afternoon of February 3, 2022, on my 41st birthday, I was in a bad accident. I had severe injuries and my lungs were crushed. As I was panicking and fighting for breath, I started bargaining with God for my life back. During this bargaining phase, my childhood memories unwound like I was an observer looking at a movie of my childhood. I was given perspective to the things that happened to me. At some interminable point, I was jarred back to the present. I was still dying. I felt the utmost, chilling cold, as God said, "You don't bargain with me." I snapped to full awareness and everything started going red and black. I was struggling to maintain consciousness and deny my situation. I guess I was going through the 5 stages of grief very quickly. I remember at least one teardrop. and when I accepted that I was going to die, my psyche shattered. The concept me of me, my life experiences, what makes me unique, it all shattered and broke. In my last moments, I felt a sense of absolute shock that the concept of me was an infinitesimally insignificant data point in a greater whole. As I grappled with what that whole was, I died. The best way I can describe what happened next is that my consciousness uploaded to heaven. Call it my soul. I felt like I was being beamed out of my own head. Then I was there. Was this heaven? It was pure light. I felt togetherness. My consciousness, my soul and all of our souls are fragments of a greater whole that I'll call God. It felt like being on a megadose of painkillers, an absolute, euphoric, warm, fuzzy, and belonging feeling. I didn't ask God questions. I thought questions, and answers just materialized. Everything, that includes the universe, reality, and life are separate sparks of God's wholeness. God is a scientist, the way that we would think of a scientist. The purpose of everything is to experience things, and bring those experiences back to the whole so that God can learn about it. I feel like I connected with or briefly engaged with a couple of people I know to be dead, in a "oh hey, you're here too" sense. Then I was leaving. Leaving was a horrible. I felt lonely and like I was being ripped away from the warm, unified light. I was soundlessly screaming in terror. And then I was back in my body. My psyche was still broken as I had general aphasia. I couldn't remember my name, or what my native language was since I speak several. I'm a polyglot. I couldn't remember anything except the terror that I was back and I didn't want to be. I was in the hospital for 5 months. I didn't discuss this with anyone. I don't think I ever will. When my disability ended, I went back to work. I'm still a great problem solver, crisis leader, and an effective manager. I won't say that I'm looking forward to dying again, but death holds no terror for me now.
And we are back. Wow, that's some really cool nuggets in that one.
Yes. A couple really just stuck out at me, but what was your thoughts on some of it?
Just a couple of notes before the actual really NDE that he got into, the actual real OBE, should I say, when he actually had died. Just a couple of things. We had the flashback of the childhood memories, and he realized he was still dying. But really what really stuck out in my mind, he said he was trying to bargain with God for life.
Yeah, that's what God said, or the source said.
Exactly, and it came back and he says, "You don't bargain with me." And I thought, ooh, whoa, that's pretty intense.
Pretty intense.
Then it said he went back to that red and black. He saw the red and the black, and that his whole psyche shattered, and then he actually died. And this is the point where he actually went over into the actual OBE, so we can actually pick up with that point there if you want. Starting off with the consciousness uploaded to heaven.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that he used that term "uploaded to heaven." You don't hear, this is like computer terms here, but a lot of people just say they were vacuumed through. I mean, just like we say, each one is different for every person that has the experience, but his was uploaded to heaven.
Yes. And
an instant upload. Exactly.
And to go with that thought, we hear this a lot. He said, how was it? Out of his head. We hear a lot of time these energy, these spirits, your soul goes right out of the top of your head. Mm-hmm. I have heard that, but I've also heard of it popping out of the chest. If they're on their back, they see them like a mist just pop out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know.
The one thing that I caught too was he said he felt that he was just a small part of the greater whole.
Fragments, yeah, just fragments of God. I like how you said that.
That's something you see a lot of. Is just that source, your spirit returning to source spirit, to your higher self. So that's cool that he got to experience and know that there's more than just this here.
Absolutely. And then what about where it says, and we hear this a lot as well, that he just had a thought, and as soon as he had a thought, it would actually materialize.
Yes, exactly. You see that a lot. You're thinking of questions and the answer is immediate.
Already there, yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, my favorite part. God is a scientist. He experiments He creates different experiments and things, and he brings them back to his lab.
Right,
I
we're
threw
here
in
to
lab. I threw in
we're here,
lab, but
yeah.
you know what I'm saying. But
we're here to experience things and take that experience back to source. I have heard that so many times through channels, through different NDE experiences. That is a common thread throughout a lot of these is we are here to experience, to live, and take that experience back to the other side.
Yeah, and I love this guy's analogy, the way he put it out. That he described Source as a scientist.
Yeah.
And we hear, like you said earlier, we know that Source is emanating and working in all things, all life, all of us. And like we've heard from many times, like you said, different experiences where people actually they say that the source, we are a source, having experiences, and then we'll bring those experiences back to Source.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he used that analogy of a scientist, and I just thought that was cool. So
right.
He did see a few friends.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too, the warm, unified light on that side, and it was euphoric.
Yeah,
it was his term that he used, euphoric. So. You see that a lot with these accounts, is that unified, like the collective. Yeah. Some people express it that way.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like we are getting ready to head back to the body itself, and he explains it, or he describes it as a terror. He said he hated. He didn't
want to be back.
He didn't want to go back. So, any comments on that?
Yeah, just that. He's, and you hear so many of these people say they did not want to come back. They wanted to stay there because of that unity, because of the love, because of the light that's there. These people are fighting, having to come back to this dense, dark world that we live in. You hear this all the time, of the fighting to stay where they are.
That a
but
lot.
The beauty in it is for him was now death holds no terror for him.
That's what
so he was terrified of it, not just fearful, but terrified of it. So that's more intense than just a regular fear. Absolutely. For him.
And also, what about that part where it took him like after 5 months? I mean, he was so.
He must have been pretty mangled.
Described a certain word he used to describe that. But like for a while, he said he couldn't even remember his name. It was just
that was interesting. That he could, I guess that's the amnesia kicking in, because he said he spoke 5 languages and he didn't know which language he spoke, because he did speak 5 languages.
Wow!
So his native language he didn't know.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It really is, and there's something unique in every one of these accounts.
There is. And when you want to look for the commonalities, because if you, and this is worldwide, we talk about this a lot on this show, and people that know anything about this is not just a local phenomenon. This is worldwide. Every culture, every nation, every person that are actually having these experiences, and it goes over into tens of thousands of experiences that are, scientifically and medically recorded and studied and things like that. So this is very common all over the world.
It is, and and I think the reason I'm starting to believe this is the reason these people are coming back and sharing these experiences is to enlighten the world, because that's part of the death experiences. We didn't have the NDE experiences for years because of the modern medicine, bringing people back and them being able to recall these things. People just died then. So this is a way for that side to enlighten us to where it does eliminate that fear. It does give us, a broader perspective of knowledge that life does go on.
Right.
It's not just here and now. And that's, I think, where we as a whole get hung up and thinking that this is all there is, and it's not.
Well, to go with that thought, I think a lot of people, I don't want to put anyone's spiritual or religious beliefs down. That's not what this show is about. And we say it all the time. If your religion and what you believe brings you higher consciousness, brings you closer to source, makes you a better person,
makes you do
love
good to
more,
others.
do good to others.
Yes. By all means.
Keep it going, because source will let you know when that level of your spirituality is going to be enough, and he'll take you to another level from there.
Right.
But if whatever works for you right now is what you want, what you need. But we have to understand the role that even most religions have played in our belief systems and our concepts of things like life and death, the afterlife, the heaven and hell concepts. You think about, say, like even Christianity's heaven and hell, that traces way back to Zoroastrianism, Medo-Persian. And you can trace it back to see where these roots come from. But
yeah, and pardon the interruption, but with you saying that, it the religion of heaven and hell, the teaching of that, actually creates a fear for you to serve that God that you're serving. It's not out of love, out of want to do good to others, to be the light, to share love with others. That creates a fear-based serving
relationship. Yeah, and that's not healthy.
And that's not healthy. That's not a true source.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, source is love, and it can only be built on love. So if what you're involved in intervenes with that love in any kind of way, if it separates you from humanity and others, then that's not love.
That's not
it should bring us all
unconditional
together.
love. Yeah, love should unite,
source
not
brings us all
divide,
together.
and be non-judgmental.
Exactly.
Don't judge.
All right. Well, looking at the clock, let's go ahead and listen to our next clip and see if we can get some nuggets out of that. How's that sound?
Let's go nugget hunting, baby.
All right. And we are rolling.
When I was a teenager, I had issues with depression and anxiety. I attempted suicide a handful of times. When I was about to turn 18, I decided that I was going to end it all by taking an overdose of drugs and then going to sleep. I assumed that I would die peacefully in my sleep, since this is what I saw on TV shows and in movies, but this was not the case for me. I took whatever pills I could find from the kitchen cupboard and followed them with a drink of my mother's alcohol. I went to sleep. Sometime later, I woke up to the sound of a loud, fast, and repetitive, beating noise. I quickly realized it was my heart. It was beating so hard that I swear I could hear it through my chest. As I was lying there, I remembered trying to kill myself. I was scared. My body was telling me that it was shutting down. I was having difficulty breathing fast enough to keep up with my heart, and my brain felt fried. When I knew that my body was giving up, that's when things started to happen. Suddenly, I saw my own face very close up. I saw my face almost directly above myself, but a little to the side. I saw that my eyes were open and I looked dead. I also saw my whole body and the surrounding area from 5 or 6 feet higher above my body. I'm not sure if I was seeing myself from both perspectives at the same time or not. I can see there are 20 or more people standing around my bed, like they are waiting or something. I could only really see the tops of their heads and didn't recognize any of these. I don't remember them being dressed in any peculiar way. I then saw a flash vision of my grandmother, who was the only person I knew who was deceased at the time. I wasn't thinking about her, and no thoughts were going through my mind. She was stood in a dark graveyard. She was wearing an old-fashioned, white gown from her neck down to her feet. She stood there slightly to one side and was giving me a stern, angry look. She communicated with me that it wasn't my time, that my mother would be hurt, and that I would be going back. I'm not sure where this communication came from, as it wasn't audible or come from a voice. It seemed like she purposefully stopped what was going on. Then I returned to my body with the knowledge that I have to do something to get out of this situation, so I called for an ambulance. I eventually got taken to the hospital and recovered. Side notes. I think some of the people standing around my bed were paramedics, but I'm not 100% sure on this.
I've tried rationalizing who all these people were and what they were there for. It did cross my mind not long after the experience that it could have been some kind of flash forward to if I had actually died for real and what the scene could have looked like, but that still doesn't answer why there were so many people in my room. My grandmother was a dominant, controlling woman, and my mother counted on her. She was protective of her. I never had a great relationship with my grandmother, but just before she died, she would invite me over to her house and we became quite close. My vision was different in some way when I was out of my body, but I can't explain further. I don't recall seeing things more or less clearly, but there was definitely a change in my vision, like I was seeing in Super 3D or something. I also don't think that I could feel my heart beating when I was out of my body, although I'm not certain on this since I wasn't in any state of reflection at the time. I personally think I died for a split second or a few seconds.
All right, and we are back. Okay, this guy had a drug overdose. A little bit of alcohol to kick it in and kind of throw him all over into that overdose state.
Interesting that he said what woke him was the loud, fast noise that he described as possibly his heart, and it scared him, so he called.
The heartbeat was so loud. Yeah. Wow.
But this is a common thing that you see a lot of, too, is that sense of knowing. He said his body was telling him that it was shutting down.
Yeah,
that sense himself. The sense of knowing that most of these NDEers have is they know they're about to pass.
Transition, yes. And this was pretty unique, I think, for an OBE. A lot of times, it kind of the consciousness will shift over, or they shift out of the body, and they're looking down, perhaps over the body, or they can look down and see in the operating room or whatever. This guy here, it seems to me, he said he didn't know if he was seeing it from both perspectives or what, but at first he could see actually himself above him over to the left. He saw his face. He said then he saw his whole body,
right,
which was about 5 or 6 feet above his body.
Right.
So, was he seeing still in the first person, or did he shift over to even like a third person and see the first and second person, or what?
It's very interesting on that part. But he goes into seeing 20 or more people around his bed in his room that he didn't recognize, which was quite interesting. But he past that saw his grandmother, and she told him it was not his time. So
well, before you get too far ahead of yourself, kind of thinking about the 20 people around the bed, he later commented that he wasn't sure, so he's not saying that this is what it was, but he said it could have possibly, because he didn't have a near-death experience here in the sense that he was already in the hospital and in the hospital bed. I mean, this is something that happened. I think before he even got to the doctor, right? Before they.
Right, he was seeing the vision around his bed, so he did comment that he didn't know if it was
like a future vision. Right.
Yeah,
and that's what I was wondering. Any comments on that?
Yeah, but he didn't recognize any of them. But all he could see was the tops of their heads.
Yeah.
So my thing was, if it wasn't the future clips of what was going to happen if he did pass, but possibly the spiritual loved ones that are on the other side that was standing there to greet him, the greeting party that you sometimes hear of. We don't know what he got from it, but he just wasn't sure what happened with that.
Well, speaking of relatives on the other side, we got a little episode with grandmother here that popped up all of a sudden. Said he had a flash vision,
right,
of grandmother. Now,
very stern and looking mad at him. Yeah. Grandma being grandma.
But look at some of the elements here. Let's kind of break this part down. Look at the symbolism here. The flash vision of the grandmother said that she stood in an old graveyard.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so there's a death connection right there. And it was her, and he said he knows that she had already passed. She was one of the family members that had preceded the family in death. But said that she was dressed in white, like an old time dress or something like that.
Right.
And she had this sternness about her, this real stern look. And we hear this sometimes, and it just depends on the person. If that's what that person needs, and they're going to have somebody stern on the other side say, hey, look,
you gotta go back.
This is what you're going to do.
Right.
Because they know that that's going to affect that person strong enough to send them back. That's going to be their motivation,
Right.
That's that authority in that person's psyche. So she said that it's not your time, that he needed to, pretty much go back and look after mother,
Yeah, that mother would have been really hurt, so.
Now, again, he mentioned, like all of these are, that it was actually done telepathically.
Yes, exactly. That is the takeaway for just about every experience is the telepathy.
Yes. And then here it says he eventually he did end up going to the hospital.
Yep. Also seeing in super 3D.
Yeah, I remember
Enhanced vision. You hear that is a lot in the NDEs as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's that 360 vision, that 3D vision, 5D vision. I mean, you see the energy vision off of everything. You see everything's essence.
Yes, most definitely.
Along with everything, yeah. We probably got time for a short one. Why don't we do a short one real quick? We'll throw that in real quick and see if we can find a few more nugs, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up. How's that?
Perfect.
All right, good deal. And we are rolling.
On the night of October 28, 2019, I had returned home from my job as a registered nurse. I prepared dinner for my wife and son. I began experiencing a dull headache and thought it might be sinus pressure. I took a hot shower. During the shower, a brain aneurysm ruptured. I collapsed and stopped breathing. My wife found me and performed CPR while awaiting the ambulance. The paramedics continued CPR to the local hospital where I was placed on ventilator support. I was then sent to get CT scan where it was revealed I had a grade 5 aneurysmal subarachnoid hemorrhage. I was airlifted via helicopter to a major stroke center. I had a drain placed in my brain to relieve some of the pressure and was kept on full support in the neuro ICU for several weeks. During my coma, I had an encounter with my deceased grandparents. They died over 25 years ago, but it was as if we had just seen each other. I was not startled by their presence. We walked along a bridge over a bay. The sun was warm. I could smell my grandfather's cologne. They were the last age I saw them, 25 years ago. A giant lightning bolt appeared within arm's reach and flew through a dark tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, my wife was sobbing and smiling as I awoke from the coma several weeks later. It seemed like the experience lasted maybe 30 seconds total. I was in a different city in a hospital an hour away.
And we are back. All right, that was kind of a short one there, but there's a couple of nuggets we got out of it. He was a registered nurse. His wife was a nurse. So it starts off with him having this headache, and he said he went and took a shower. Thought he just had like a sinus headache or whatever, but it ended up...
Yeah, it was something very major.
It ended up being like a brain hemorrhage or something, I believe they said. Aneurysm, yeah. So he goes into a coma, and then what happens?
Interesting that he saw his grandparents, which is the senior deceased loved ones, and that is very common, that it is those that you were close to. But interesting with this one is they were at the age they were when they passed. Sometimes they're younger, sometimes they're older.
That was a comment I wanted to make as well. Yeah, that a lot of times you hear that the grandparents has returned to like a 30-year-old age, but they still knew it was their grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But what was pretty neat about this one, and you hear it not often, but you do hear it. But they had this encounter with his grandparents that had passed years ago.
25 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and he still that's I guess what he identified them as. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't know, but they were at the older age that he remembered them as before they passed away. So
Yeah.
That was kind of bizarre.
Yeah, and as well, we're talking about enhanced senses here. He felt the warmth and an earthly scene, which is very common in these NDEs. Is he was at a bay and it was very pleasant and warm.
Yeah.
The sun was shining, so it's those enhanced senses. Even the sense of smell. He smelled his grandfather's cologne. So we still carry those things that we know across the
things
veil.
That were recorded into the senses, I would think. Goes into the psyche, goes into the spirit.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
wow.
Very interesting.
So if you take just that little part there and look at the different elements, breaking it down, like the scene of them looking at this beautiful scene.
The bay and all.
The bay, right. So that's visual. Okay, now that's something of the eyes. And it mentioned that warm. Remember,
the feel?
Felt warm. The warm.
Kinesthetic?
Yeah, exactly. So there's two senses right there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the sense of smell. He actually smelled
olfactory, yeah.
his grandfather's cologne. Olfactory. So that's 3.
A lot of the senses being used, but enhanced.
Yes, and that shows you that these senses
carry over.
Are probably part of that.
The spiritual.
Of your being. You still have your senses, They're just functioning different down here. We associate our senses to the actual physical organs that these senses are channeling through, or where we're experiencing life through. Say, for example, when we think of visual, we usually associate eyes. People think about eyes. Of course, the auditory would be the ears.
Right.
I'm sure he probably even heard birds and things. I'm sure if the senses were there and enhanced,
if he's in a bay,
and But do you need ears on the other side if you're communicating telepathically?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good question. Think about that.
Yeah, that's very interesting, to say the least.
So,
speaking of the olfactory, the enhanced senses, it's amazing that that sense of smell actually carries over. If you've ever heard of phantom sense, do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
I have those all the time.
Right.
And it's like the smell is not there, and I know it's not. So there's spiritual meanings and little clues along the way, little nudges from your higher self and spirit to let you be aware of things. But I thought that was cool that it was a loving experience because he remembered his grandfather's cologne. So it might have been Old Spice or something, being an older man. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? It might have been something really good smelling. Who knows? But that sense of smell carries over. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It is.
Because and you hear people, I'm sure, to me, it seems to be visual. You get a lot of visual
yes.
of the senses. You get a lot of that, but you
Vision
also get
and hearing,
and you get the kinesthetic as far as feeling, love. Just that feeling of love just takes over the body. So definitely the feelings are there. So these senses do carry over with us.
The top 3 senses: vision, hearing, and feeling. Those are what pretty much everybody bases their
because do you
everything
need a
off
mouth
I know.
or ears if you're not speaking and talk here? I mean, you may have it as just for cosmetics or something, but if everything is telepathic, then do you need ears and mouth?
Right.
Something to think about.
And you think of all the different ones where people see as the ball of energy, the light. There's no physical form there, but there are those that like he did. They was walking across a bridge, So the physical form was there for him.
There,
It's amazing. Each one is so different, but it makes you really just think what we can experience on the other side once we transition.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good. Well, on that note, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. And
yes, I have enjoyed it too. Yeah, I love doing these little episodes for everyone. And hopefully you're taking away something as well that you can glean and grow from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. We appreciate you guys listening, and we thank you so much. We send you all of our love, and may peace be with you all. And until next time,
let your light shine.
For more information about the NDE World Podcast, visit NDE.world. That's NDE.world.